Looks like I'm live here. Okay, so this is the Resolute Cartographer. It is Saturday, February 10th at 6:05 p.m. Sorry, I'm a little bit late here. I realized at the last minute that my thumbnail wasn't really right for this. And obviously this is Fallout 4 and the thumbnail is Fallout New Vegas, but there's a reason for that. And that reason is that the last time I streamed, I already talked about the next lore video, which is going to be taking place in Fallout New Vegas. Specifically, it's going to be covering uh, the uh, the city of Searchlight, Nevada. And given that I already kind of talked about it in that video, I don't feel the need to talk about it just yet again. Instead, I'm going to be talking about the next video following that one, which is going to be covering Hallucinogen, this company here in Boston that also has a connection to Fallout New Vegas. And hey, Kingdom of Vinland, good to see you. Happy Saturday. Hoping you're having a good start to your weekend here. Well, midway through it at this point. But basically, this is in my continuation of covering the Gunners, given that I've also previously covered Quincy. What were the other ones as well? Vault 75. I think it was Vault 75. Let me check, because actually, I opened up my thing to see what the last Fallout 4 lore video I did was, and it was, let's see here, 6 months ago, Vault 95. Sorry about that. Yeah, and that's also why I still have Kate with me here on this character, because I was in Vault 95 with Kate for her companion quest there, where you're getting rid of all the drugs in her system. But again, these have all been videos that have been covering the Gunners tangentially, because the Gunners are involved. And basically, this is all leading up to a point where I cover the Gunners in total, specifically at their headquarters at Gunner Plaza, and then, you know, that'll actually be in the same video where I just cover the Gunners, generally speaking. Like the idea of a Fallout game set in Alaska, I think that would be really interesting. I'm actually interested in seeing any new Fallout game anytime soon, obviously. We're going to be getting something in Fallout 76 this year, something fairly big, expansion of the map, opening up of, what is that, Vault 63. Along with that, I'm hoping some sort of incursion by the Enclave, because we haven't really seen too much of them in Fallout 76. We've seen the Settlers, we've seen the Raiders, we've seen the Brotherhood of Steel, but the Enclave has been kind of in the shadows in the background, so it's going to be interesting to see if they start to make a real full appearance. Now, along with that, in 76, well, obviously, different line of thinking here. In terms of new videos I need to make on 76, covering the content that came out with the Atlantic City update, I'll need to do that at some point. Hey, Night Spearhead, good to see you. Hope you're having a good start to your weekend there. Yeah, so I released my lore video covering Cydonia in Starfield today. And it's one of those things where it's like Starfield videos aren't doing great right now, but I always kind of... I kind of anticipate that, and my hope is that at some point in the future they'll become more popular. But in the meantime, I really like the game Starfield, so I'm going to cover it. Let's see. There's a mod in Fallout 4 in development. Yeah, I've heard about Fallout Cascadia. One of the people I've had conversations with on Twitter is part of that development team. Okay, yeah. Work like usual. Good to see you, a lot of mercy. Hope y'all are all having a good week here. Let's see.
Damn it! My leg's hit.
My hope is, as I've put forward, given I'm a Texan, I'm always hoping for Austin. Just because I think the setting is kind of perfect for it. We got the river, we got caves, we got hills, we got forests, we got university, military base, the old missile silos, Texas National Guard base, Capitol building, actually multiple universities, zoo. So it's one of those things where it's like, we could also have giant armadillos, could have the blind, what are they called, newts crawling out of the aquifer to attack people, stuff like that. So, but really anywhere. Back before, this may be back, yeah. Yeah, all that stuff would be great. Seattle would be great because of the idea of the potential conflict between the NCR and whoever's living there, or even some sort of organized Canada. But back before, I think it was Broken Steel launched. This has been a while. It may even be back before Wastelanders. I had this like, no, I think it was after Wastelanders. I had this fantasy that there'd be some sort of distant, like there'd be a Fallout 5 that was set in like Louisiana, and it would actually include elements from Fallout 76. In that, I was like hoping that the people from Fallout 76 would be united, and then would use oversight and automation to basically turn themselves into a superpower. Got myself killed there. This character is more so for filming than anything else. I don't even think the level's all that high. Oh, 56 level is actually fairly high, but not well armed or armored at the moment, so. Alaska. Yeah, Alaska would be interesting, especially because you could do something with the whole Chinese invasion up there. You could have remnant Chinese forces that are like, they were holding out after the bombs and have formed a new community up there or something like that. You know, they were in hiding basically after the invasion was pushed out, but then, you know, formed a new community after the bombs. It would be interesting to see that kind of thing. See, I don't know what I was going to say. Canceled Fallout Extreme. I do remember there being a Fallout, a Fallout MMO that they were trying to design at one point by them. I mean, I think it was Black Isle or Interplay or whatever it was before. Or maybe even Obsidian. I don't know if Obsidian ever had the rights at that point, but somebody was designing a Fallout MMO at that point, and anyway, that's what it sounded like to me a little bit. It would be interesting to see what they had in Alaska, because obviously, if Operation Anchorage is anything to go by, there was clearly a huge amount of fighting going on there. But at the same time, there were still extant facilities that weren't completely bombed into the ground. New Orleans, I think, would be interesting. Yeah, obviously, that would, yeah, House of the Rising Sun would have to be on the radio at some point. But it's one of those things where one of the fun things about wherever they set a Fallout game is always seeing what creatures they end up creating with radioactivity. Like in DC, they had the Mirelurks because of the crabs in the Chesapeake Bay, and you obviously have the giant bats up in West Virginia. Of course, that was not so much created by the bombs, but by the government. But anyway, let's see. The crazy fog creatures up in Far Harbor. That's, again, why I think Texas would be interesting. Alaska could have... I mean, I feel like Alaska, you'd kind of just get variations on what you've already seen in terms of, like, Kodiak... Kodak, or whatever. The giant bears, I can't remember what they're called. And then, along with that, the polar bears being Yaguai as well. Oh, really? I would not expect a song that, because, I don't know, I guess Disney constantly reinforcing their copyright has given me a skewed view on when things enter the public domain, but I would not expect a song that's not that old. I mean, it is old, but it's not that old. But yeah, so again, Fallout 4, going to cover Hallucinogen, but again, that comes after Searchlight. Now, while I was working on the Yaguai is great, but while I was working on the Cydonia lore video, it was not the only thing that I was working on. In fact, I was basically on a daily basis doing at least something with the Searchlight lore video. Not when I was at home, because when I was home I was always working on the video. But when I was at work, if I'd get a minute here or there, I would work on the script a little bit. Where's the public library here? Oh, there you go. There's the public library right there. It's like, I just found these books. I gotta go turn them in to get this out of my inventory. But what was I gonna say? But yeah, so I've been working on the Searchlight video. So that is still coming along, and I have to write out the main part talking about the Fallout history of it. But I know the history of it, so. That's not going to take an enormously long period of time, so.
I can wait all day for you to show your...
This live stream? Not much. I mean, truly, mostly what this was I have a weekly live stream, and usually it's to talk about the video that's coming up, but I have already talked about the video that's coming up, which again is specifically... Oh wait, I'm not going anywhere but here. Is specifically talking about the Searchlight lore video, and I talked about that last time because I thought that I was going to be done much quicker than it ended up being. I don't know if any of you have watched that. It's 56 minutes long, which is the longest video I've produced like in a single run in a while, and there's 100 and something, like 155, 100 and something like that gigabytes worth of data in there. So it's the file itself, the final video, is only 9.5 gigabytes, but it still took me a long time to put that thing together. Pikmin shows up in the Amazon show. That'd be pretty cool. Of course, Pikmin being based on, it's a Lovecraftian reference in its own right. Pikmin becoming a ghoul.
What the hell was that?
Another thing set in Boston.
This is gonna be a piece of cake.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what exactly they could do in terms of the different creatures up there.
That was easy.
Well, at the very least, we haven't seen much of the Raiders in any sort of promo material. Not in terms of there being like a protagonist. If I remember correctly, it's looks like a Vault Dweller and member of the Brotherhood of Steel, but I don't remember if there's something else I'm missing from that. Oh, the cowboy, the old cowboy ghoul. That's another one. But yeah, none of them so far, unless that guy's a raider. Unless that's the case, then we have not seen much of the Raiders yet. Yeah, no, that would absolutely be, that would seem like it'd be the case. Though, again, we really have to, there's a lot more to learn about this, because why is the Brotherhood of Steel so prominent in this thing set within NCR territory, where everything we know about the situation says that the Brotherhood should be, if anything, like a rump state sort of a situation within California itself. So unless this is giving us some real information on what happened with the NCR and Caesar's Legion, or maybe the NCR and House, or hell, even the NCR and the Courier with Yes Man. I mean, unless this is like that sort of information worth telling us that the NCR effectively failed in the Mojave and has fallen back and the Brotherhood of Steel has made a resurgence, then I don't know what to make of the Brotherhood of Steel being as prominent as they are, or as they seem to be. I mean, if they can have their Zeppelin flying around, it'll be interesting to see exactly what that's all about. Let's see. What else to talk about? So, in terms of upcoming lore videos, I've got like a dozen pins here, but it's a question of do any of these work. East Coast Maxon returned. See, but then again, anything they give us in that sort of way is something that's giving us a canonical outcome on what happened in the games, and we haven't had that yet. I mean, obviously Fallout 4 gave us canonical outcome to Fallout 3, where, you know, the Enclave is wiped out and all that, but I mean, that's kind of the canonical outcome regardless. It's that's just telling us that, yeah, the events of the game that we saw take place did take place. But yeah, if Maxon returns from the East Coast, then that says that the Brotherhood of Steel survived everything in Boston, and I guess they could tell us that they lost and fled, somehow surviving without having their airship destroyed. But from my understanding, the airship has a different name. Like, that's something that I've heard people talking about. I have not specifically seen that. Hey, Daniel Wolfgang. Hope you're having a good, wow, late night over there in Germany. Well, I mean, you could say that, but you could also say that the NCR simply fled the Mojave. And has, you know, it's come back home. But it could be the case that they pull back because of, and again, not even specifically saying fleeing, but more so the war was not terribly popular. And it could simply be the case that the people back home basically recalled the forces from the Mojave and just left it to rot. So we'll see exactly what's going on there. Yeah, well, I mean, the Enclave really has to show up a bit more before I'd call them the bad guys. I mean, obviously, with what Eckhart did. But I'm talking like in terms of actual in-game us fighting the Enclave. We haven't really seen that yet, so... okay, so again, though, upcoming lore videos, we've got Hallucinogen. Then after that, well, actually, no, sorry, Searchlight, then Hallucinogen. And then I'm thinking something 76 related. So, let's see. Yes, talking about potential, what potentially has led to the Brotherhood of Steel being so prominent in the Fallout TV show. Yeah, Russian faction in Fallout Alaska would be interesting. AK-74s, maybe. Well, just because, I mean, we've only really... I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of everything in the Fallout universe. I know much better than I used to. Things in Fallout 4, 76, and 3. And New Vegas, obviously, because any place I've actually made a lore video, I've got an increased amount of information. But the only Russian I remember, I like can pinpoint in my mind, is man, he's part of the Crater Raiders. I'm trying to remember what the hell his name is off the top of my head. I'm going to like Vlad, but I don't think that's right. I will be doing something on 76's Atlantic City. So that might be the thing there. Oh, I still have to do the Metro video as well, and I'm still trying to get the website built. It's just my time was so consumed by that Cydonia lore video trying to get that thing out. That was probably at least 100 hours, if not more, of labor to get that thing out. That's another one of the... Lev! It was Lev, thank you. Because it's like... yeah, anyway. But he's the only Russian that I remember, specifically. And they talk about the fact that, like, the Soviet Union still existed in the Fallout universe by the bombs, so... Okay, the Bobrovs are Ukrainian? Okay. Well, I mean, if we could learn a little bit more about that, again, I haven't specifically talked to them much, but if we could find out if they were part of the Ukrainian SSR or something like that, or maybe if there was even some sort of breakup of the Soviet Union, but it maintained its hold over some of the republics, but not all of them. Okay, Dukov, yeah, from Fallout 3. I haven't done much with Dukov, so I'll have to look into him specifically. Well, again, Ukraine would be part of the SSR unless there was some sort of middle-of-the-road breakup of the USSR instead of a complete collapse. Yeah, international travel in Fallout is crazy, where you find like people from Ireland, for example, over here. Yeah, Tenpenny. There was that the guy in Lookout and Point Lookout, who's British. The Moriarty. It's one of those things where it's like, and I also have trouble believing that like accents from the pre-war would really survive long term. Like, the way I mean this is like individuals in a community. It's hard to see how that would be the case. Like entire communities having their own standout accent, that absolutely makes sense. Because we're talking about like isolated groups of people. But like it'd be weird for there just to be like, hey, it's the Chinese immigrant family. Their family's been here for 400 years, just like the rest of us. And yet somehow they have a Chinese accent. It's like, what? Why is that the case? They're like 10th generation or something. Yeah. I'll have to look into Fallout London at some point. I still have not done that yet. Overdue book.
Leave that junk behind. You're just wasting space.
Yeah, no, that's true. Ronto being Toronto.
Oh, hell! Something's ghosting us. Here! Come on, baby! Show me what you
So yeah,
got.
in terms of Russian community in some sort of Fallout set in Alaska would definitely be interesting, and it would give us more insight into more international, more how the international, the world in general has fared after the bombs, which is something that we really don't have a huge amount of. The Handmaid is pretty much an AK.
Oh, just getting warmed up.
There are guns in Fallout 4 specifically, 3 as well. I always have hated the assault rifle in Fallout 3. I don't know if the Handmaid's the Chinese assault rifle or an AK. Do I have one on this character? I might. Let's see. I don't think so. Not one on me at the very least. But I've never been a fan of this being the assault rifle either. Like, this is just, it's so weird. It looks like it's a water-cooled barrel or something. It always looks to me like I'm holding like a World War I era machine gun whenever I'm running around. The Chinese assault rifle is a lot of fun. And especially in Fallout 3, it's Chinese assault rifle over American assault rifle all the way. The American one is terrible by comparison. Yeah, no, and I'll say that. This looks like a weapon that should be bigger and should be carried by the men in power armor. Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, does seem more like that. Yeah, that was something that always seemed strange to me, the fact that the Chinese assault rifle didn't seem to make it into Fallout 4 despite the fact that it existed in Fallout 3. There's so many raiders down here. I will say that it's always interesting to see what exactly advances in between the games. For example, Fallout 3, the downtown is basically destroyed. The only way to get around is via the metro system. While in Fallout 4, the metro system does still, to an extent, exist. They were able to actually build out the city of Boston. Now, this thing, it's... I don't know if it's like a problem with optimization or anything like that, but I know that this is still the area of the game that people have a huge amount of trouble with frame rate in and everything like that, myself included at times. And it's one of those things where it's like, this is definitely, the city of Boston is a sign of the improvement in between Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 in terms of their ability to build urban areas. But it's going to be interesting to really see the difference between 4 and 5, or 4 and New Vegas 2, or whatever it is they build, if they build a second game in between 4 and 5. It'll be interesting to see what exactly of course, if they build one in between 4 and 5, it's probably going to be like a... Just like New Vegas was basically like a heavily modified version of Fallout 3, it'd be something like that. We wouldn't see improvements to the engine or anything like that. That would be something we'd see in the next one. In the same way that in between, well, obviously not exactly the same sort of situation, but Skyrim was way more advanced than Oblivion, and they added the dragons, all that kind of stuff. So it'll just be interesting to see. Yeah, I've never been a fan. Again, I ever since I first played Fallout 3 back in '08, like I would get the American-made assault rifle, and I was just like, oh, this, and like the spread of the rounds was just all over the place. And of course, I'm sure some of that was gun skill with that character, but then the Chinese assault rifle, it's one of those things where it's like the bullet hits, it does serious damage, and it just does not feel that way with the American one. It'd be great if there was something where the interiors of buildings were effectively exterior, so you could actually look out windows and stuff like that. That was definitely one of the things that kind of was disappointing to see when I was reviewing Cydonia, was simply the fact that there are these massive bay windows in Cydonia, but they look like just like big frosted planes of glass for whatever reason. Now, I'm sure they could put some sort of lore reason for that, like, oh, it's to protect you from solar radiation. Those aren't like windows. Those are like protective screens. Oh. I've been playing a little too much Starfield. I was trying to use a jump pack there. Yeah, energy weapons would be nice, but of course it's one of those things where it's kind of a it's one of those things where you got to justify it. Like Fallout 4, they were able to justify additional energy weapons because the Institute was advanced enough to build their own. So it's one of those situations where you have to have an organization that can still do that. You can of course have some sort of unique one-off weapon that people just didn't know about or whatever, but we'll have to see exactly what they do. Yeah, just because it's like ballistic weapons, that's one thing. This is a ballistic weapon is something that humanity has been building for hundreds of years by now. So even hundreds of years further by the time you get to the Fallout games. But laser weapons are obviously something entirely different. Yeah, I'd like to see Obsidian working on another Fallout game. I really like, and I really enjoy New Vegas. I'd love to see what they could do with Fallout 4's engine, or even if they could get away with it, the engine from Starfield. But I don't think that would be the case. I think that Bethesda's probably reserving that one for themselves. But I mean, I'd love to see something out west using this engine, right? Because I mean, even now, this is, good God, this is 8.5 years old. But even so, I mean, it still doesn't look bad. I mean, again, it's one of those things where it could definitely use some optimization and stuff like that in terms of, and who knows, maybe it's a hardware problem. I don't know. But in terms of, I don't think it is though. But in terms of rendering large towns like this, maybe this is just something that's difficult to do. I don't know. But I mean, can you imagine if they were able to do something like this for? I don't know if they'd want to go all the way up to the West Coast, especially with. No, I know. 76 is already 5 years old. But I don't know if they'd want to go all the way out to the West Coast with the fact that the show is taking place right there right now. But if they would want to do something set maybe in Arizona or something like that, like, again, that would be, we would get then a canonical outcome where it's like, oh, look at that, the NCR defeated the Legion and then pushed across the river or something like that. I don't know. Or maybe you're looking at the breakdown of Caesar's Legion, and you got like factions that have formed after its collapse, where some of them still look like the Legion and some of them are back to being the original tribes, or you've got other organizations that have formed out there and stuff like that. Seattle would again also be an interesting thing to see. It's hard to say, because Obsidian, in terms of like who would you want to see develop a Bethesda game other than Fallout game other than Obsidian and Bethesda, it's hard to say, just because you got to build games that are like this for me to really see you doing it. And the problem is, like, I don't know that there are that many people that build stuff like this, you know? Yeah, Tactics is selectively canon. So it's one of those things where if Bethesda doesn't want it to be canon, it's no longer canon, you know? So... I feel like Loud of Mercy, weren't you working with Unreal Engine to try to make a Fallout thing? Set in Memphis, Tennessee, correct? So again, like this already right here is significantly better than what you see in Fallout 3 in terms of the metro area, not the metro area, the downtown area. Yeah, there you go. So it's really going to be interesting to see what they end up able to do in Fallout 5. To see if they improve on something like this, or if there's something else that they improve on. Again, I would really like to see kind of interior cells to an extent disappear and everything be just part of one cell. I know that a lot of people were kind of talking about that with Starfield, being frustrated with the fact that there's still loading screens. For me, that wasn't as big a deal, and obviously that's in part because I'm playing on a PC with a what's it called, solid state drive, and so the loading screens for me were a few seconds, if that. It's one of those things where it didn't bother me. If anything, I would just take it as a second to grab my phone, check the weather or whatever's going on in the news. But I know that a lot of people are getting frustrated by that, so I'd like to see that go away.
You hear that?
Oh yeah, no, the metro area, so the downtown area of Fallout 4 is definitely far more interesting than the one in Fallout 3. And that was, again, part of the big technological improvement between 3 and 4. And just they talked about back when they made Skyrim that one of the big technological improvements there was the fact that they could really do verticality in the world, and I think part of that was like loading distance for objects and stuff like that. One thing I would really like to see, and I'm not sure how likely this is.
This is gonna be a piece of cake.
There it is. Would be better long distance renders, and I'm sure that for a lot of people, and even for me, most of the time when I'm just playing the game, it's not something that I really notice. Like if I'm looking up at like one of those buildings up there, that doesn't look bad. But it's definitely the case that when you get something with a scope, I don't know if, do I have anything really has a scope on it? I mean, I got a lot of little scopes. Do I have anything with a long scope on it? Not really. But basically long distance rendering is not great. So when you're looking through like a sniper scope, you're looking at all these low poly textures and stuff like that. I'd love to see that go away. Now, part of that I'm sure is hardware based, because it's one of those things where you basically would have to load the high definition textures of whatever somebody's looking at in that moment, and then, you know, again, offload them. I gotta get something with that. I really would like to see more of that. I also really do appreciate the fact that they've started including photo modes and everything they do. Starfield and Fallout 76 in their newest projects. But what I'd like to see with that as well is that, especially, this would be something that's especially possible to do if it's not an online-only game like 76. But if you did it to where it's like, okay, crank down the processing power, turn up the graphics when you're taking this screenshot so you can get like high-definition textures all the way through the picture. I'd like to see that kind of thing. Let's see.
Disappearing at. I'm beginning to enjoy this.
Yeah, I mean, I feel it was almost weird when I played New Vegas for the first time. And like, I'm alright, 10mm pistol, used to this from Fallout 3. And then suddenly I found a 9mm and I was like, this looks like a normal gun. This is weird. Am I? Okay, yeah, I am hitting the face with this gun. Just is terrible.
Wiping the floor with you.
But yeah, so that'll be interesting to and who knows when we're gonna get any sort of news on Fallout, because other than like the fact that we know they're working on it and they released that trailer like 6 years ago or whenever it was, like we have not seen anything on Elder Scrolls 6. We don't even know what their big technological innovation is going to be. My guess is that they're probably going to end up building it in the Starfield engine, so we're going to see what that does, but other than that, what else are they going to do? And I will say that, like, it's definitely the case that
Got it.
the facial textures in Starfield are so much better than any of the existing Fallout games. Like, obviously, 76 is better than 4, 4 is better than New Vegas is better than 3. Actually, New Vegas and 3, I think, are about the same. But it'll be really interesting to see exactly what they do take from the Starfield engine, and my hope is obviously all the graphical upgrades, but at the same time, they're not really going to be able to use like any of the tile sets at all. Caves maybe, but other than that. Oh yeah, it's definitely the case. It's one of those things that you learn over time, is that like people that build games are really good at building games, but there's a lot of stuff about the real world that they don't know. And it's the same sort of thing with, it's like, you look at like people doing television shows and stuff like that, and if You have any basic knowledge of engineering, you look at this stuff and you're like, what? Wait. It's not even like I'm like a master engineer or anything like that, but I'll look at these things and I'll be like, no, you shouldn't be doing that. I'm not sure what you're referring to there, Kingdom of Vinland. Let's see. I'm trying to... Your statement there is a little weird, a lot of mercy. I'm trying to understand it. Okay. Okay, sorry. That... Well, and so, like, the whole watching stuff as an engineer, like, specifically the thing that came to mind was when I was watching that Netflix adaptation of Lost in Space. And they've got these fittings that they're using that don't make any sense for them to be using. They're fittings that we use, like, every day. They're for basically quick disconnecting hoses. You use them on things like fire hoses and stuff like that. And they've got them on that are supposed to be, like, permanent lines inside of a spacecraft, and it's like, these are for like, no, these are not situations you use this for. Also reminds me of the other day somebody made a joke, and obviously it's one of those things where it's like you're not really supposed to analyze jokes too heavily. They're like, no, the KitchenAid, block of stainless steel to take up space on your counter. And it was like a 18-inch by 18-inch by 18-inch block, and they're like, yeah, this thing weighs 80 pounds. I was like, that doesn't sound right. And so I did the math on it, and it was like an 80-pound block of stainless steel would be like 6.5 inches on each side if you made a cube out of it. Which, again, it's a joke. It's not the point. The point is that KitchenAid makes these gigantic appliances that take up a huge amount of space on your counter. But at the same time, that part of my brain doesn't just shut off when I see this kind of thing. Okay, yeah, to be honest, I've never played Tactics, simply because as soon as I found out it was semi-canonical, I decided I'd spend my time on the stuff that was fully canonical. So. Oh, they're up there. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so in 76, and again, I still need to work on the Metro, and I need to work on getting the website put together. But in 76, I think I needed to do the first surveil video on Atlantic City. So that is my current schedule. Of course, again, the Metro video basically is demanding that I finish the website video. Well, not the website video, the website for the channel. So we'll see exactly what that takes. I did get a trial of Microsoft Copilot to use with my text editor. What's it called? Man, it's been so long since I've been to my coding bootcamp. I've forgotten the names of some of the most basic stuff. VS Code is what it's called. I can't remember what it's like. Text environment, I can't remember. Whatever. Regardless, I need to work on that. To be honest, I have not been to the newest part of Atlantic City. I have visited the first two, and I did both of those on stream. I have not focused on 76 because I've been focusing on all these other videos that I'm trying to get out. And even last time when I was on 76, I was specifically focused on the Settlers of Foundation, so... Oh, no, yeah, that's absolutely a thing. The Chinese subs with English signs. Or when you go to the Chinese computers and they're just like, oh, let me translate this to English for you. And it's like, wait, what? Wouldn't it be one of the, like, premier parts of their security that they would have everything be in Chinese so that any random agent getting into their base wouldn't be able to automatically know what they were working on. That just seems kind of crazy. Like Mama Dolce's, the Fujinia base underneath it. All the computers read English. Yeah, that's definitely one of those things that bugs me. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's also more so stuff like level design that doesn't make any sense. Like you'll go into a room, and the only way in and out of that room is through a hole in the wall. And it's like, did you guys not think to put a door in here and have the door be blocked up? Like if you just, if you got to think about how was this room used before it became a playable environment? Was it somebody's bedroom? Would it then not have a door, even a window? Like what building code are we working with here where the only way in and out of this person's room is through a hole that has to be punched through the wall? Yeah, practice. I would not imagine that they would send Chinese spies to the U.S. without them being fluent in English, and probably to the point where they don't have an accent. Watched a pretty interesting interview with a former Soviet spy, and the guy had no Russian accent. It was kind of fascinating because he'd spent time in Germany and then in Canada before coming to the U.S. And he sounded like he had like a slight European style accent to him, but it was very faint, like something where it's like maybe the guy had parents that were in the military, and so he grew up overseas before coming here. It's not something where I would assume, oh yeah, this guy was born and raised in the Soviet Union, went to college there before coming over here. So yeah, I do love the Mama Dolce's place, both in 3 and 76. We didn't really get much in the way of Chinese stuff here in Boston, which again is frustrating. I've talked about this before in my videos, specifically on Quincy, and I think I talked about it again on Lexington. But Quincy has the largest Chinese population of any city in Massachusetts, and yet there's no mention of it anywhere there. Like, the only place you really get a mention of it is all the way out and what's it called? Natick. And then along with that, there's the apartment building here in the middle of the city that belonged to the family as well. But, like, again, when you're dealing with a city like Quincy, which in the real world has the largest Chinese population in Massachusetts, like, yeah, it would have been really dark, but it would have been great to see a situation where it's like half the city was clearly, like, walled up beforehand, almost like the fascist federal government of the pre-war in America set up a ghetto for the Chinese or something like that. I mean, how great would that have been? Like, it would have given us this horrible view into what was going on there. I just think it's disappointing that we didn't end up getting something like that, so. Yeah, dual-wielding swords. Who knows, maybe they'll add that to, to Fallout 5. It's always kind of an interesting thing to do with dual-wielding stuff, because you can set up a game to where it's like there are specific commands for dual wielding, where it's like you're using one of the arms to do the other. And of course, you can always do that sort of thing where one of them is block and one of them is swing.
Hold on.
But then you aren't able to block with both weapons, you know. Yeah. No, again, I think it would have been great to see something like that. But and again, it's weird. Because it's a large part of Quincy's population. It's not a majority by any means, but it's a large minority. And so the fact that it wasn't acknowledged at all, I don't know if Bethesda forgot about it, or, you know, like never learned about it in the first place, or they felt that it would be something that'd be like too sensitive to cover or something like that. I don't know exactly what happened there, but I mean, in Fallout 3, there's an entire Chinese internment camp you can go to. Yeah. No, yeah, there was the Japanese internment camp, and again, there's the Chinese internment camp. But again, when you have something as large as the population of Quincy, and again, let me look it up real quick. It's a pretty large number of people there that are of Chinese ancestry, and some of them are, you know, first-generation immigrants. Oh yeah, no, I mean definitely, but I'm trying to remember what it was actually that they called it there. Um, what they called it in Point Lookout. I mean, because it has a name. I just can't remember it off the top of my head. One second here. Yeah, the racial makeup of Quincy is 15.6% Chinese. I mean that is a large part of the population there, and if we're talking about a city that is 101,000 people, that's 15,000 people that are Chinese. And so it's like one of those things where it's like, if they'd drawn anything from that into the game, I feel like it would have made the game more interesting. Again, I just don't know if they viewed it as being something too sensitive or what. And like they wouldn't even necessarily have had to do something where it's like internment camp within the city, but if it was like somewhere off in the middle of the swamp out here, if you have this like a camp out here that's like for the Chinese population of Quincy, I feel like that would have been just nuts to find something like that. Yeah. We did that back during World War II with the Japanese that lived on the West Coast. Yeah, I mean, not the same sort of situation. Obviously, its own sort of terrible situation, the Trail of Tears, but it wasn't internment camps. It was reservations in that case. But it's one of those things where it's like, the reservation is definitely like the internment camps were specifically actually guarded by soldiers. They had fences around them. They had watchtowers with machine guns. So it's definitely a different situation than when, like, once the natives got from Georgia, South Carolina, Appalachia off to Oklahoma. I mean, yeah, there were forts out there, but the actual reservations themselves were not surrounded by fences with towers. Obviously, they didn't have machine guns yet by that point, but still. Yeah, I know. I definitely know about the Germans in that case in terms of World War One. I mean, there was so much anti-German sentiment that you had people changing their last names away from German names to English names. I mean, it even goes so far as the Windsor family of the royal family of England, where they were once of Hanover. So, of course, we never ended up with the royals in internment camps. But that would have been up to the Brits. Well, so again, Atlantic City surveils. After which I can then do a Atlantic City lore video, which will likely be on the factions of Atlantic City, just like I did with a pit. My understanding is, and I don't know if I maybe misread this somewhere or we just haven't seen it yet, but my understanding is because we're supposed to, at some point, see an additional section to the pit, which I'm looking forward to because I'm hoping it's the mill, the headquarters for the fanatics. We'll see whether or not that actually happens. Ukrainians because they were part of the Austro-Hungarians. Well, yeah, this mix between them and the Russians. Basically kind of split between the Austro-Hungarians and the Russians. Because the Austro-Hungarian Empire also had Romania and Hungary. Well, obviously Hungary, but it's crazy to see those old borders and to see the battlegrounds from World War One. That was the Eastern Front. Like the Western Front was bad, but the Eastern Front was horrible as well. And it's hard to say which one was worse. I think the Western Front was the one that had the gas and the tanks, but the Eastern Front was just like endless waves of soldiers being thrown against each other in freezing trenches. So again, just to go over this one last time. Up next, Searchlight lore video. Expect that one this week. It's not like my Starfield video on Cydonia being 56 minutes long. The Searchlight lore video should probably be no longer than the Nipton lore video. And so that will not take a huge amount of time, especially because I've already been working on it. After that, Hallucinogen, and that'll be the first Fallout 4 video in a while. After that, I will cover 76, Atlantic City Surveil. At some point in the midst of all this, expect the website and the Metro video, the Fallout 3 Metro video. So, Yeah, the Austro-Hungarian Empire is fascinating. Truly, one of the more fascinating parts of world history. The fact that that place existed with the sheer number of languages and ethnic groups that were crammed together in this giant polity. It's like, how did this work? And obviously it didn't forever because it ended up falling apart, but it's one of those things where it's crazy how powerful they were for a while there. But anyway, I think we'll close things out here because we've pretty much talked about. I mean, I haven't really even said much about hallucinogen here, but I've talked about what's coming. So yeah, no, the Empire did. That's one of the things I have read. They had horrible infrastructure. So I think we'll end things here. And again, by this next Friday, expect the Searchlight lore video. I'm gonna stop trying to do this thing where I release things on Friday, and instead I'm gonna do it whenever I finish it. That's when I put it out, just because that seems like the right thing to do. I've not really noticed any sort of difference in terms of like, oh, I released it at 4:15 p.m. on a Thursday, and therefore I got all these extra viewers. So what I'm going to end up doing is basically just when the thing's done, I'll put it out. If it's something where I got to let it process for a few hours, obviously I'll let it do that, and so it'll come out like 8 a.m. on that day or whatever. But otherwise, look forward to those videos I've detailed. Searchlight coming first, and then Hallucinogen. And I will see you all next Friday. I hope you all have a good rest of your weekend and a good rest of tonight. I'll see you all next Friday.